Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be repairing my Vantrue N2 Dashcam, and this has been riding in my car for a couple of years, and the battery, the internal battery's died. I'm going to be replacing the lithium cell that goes inside, and I suspect that the sun has baked it to death. As you can see here on the top, the case is distorted from being in the direct sunlight. Now, the aggravating thing about all of that is the cameras come with a menu for parking mode, for leaving these for either 1 second recording intervals so they can take a time-lapse photo every 1 second or every 3 seconds, or a motion detect mode to detect any activity around your vehicle and record it while you're away instead of just continuously recording all day long. And they go through, there's great explanations in there on how to set it up for recording mode. And then a couple of paragraphs later it says, never leave these sitting in a parked car in the sun. Well, what good is the recording mode if you can't leave it parked in your car parked in the sun? I bought a second one of these when this one died. This one is going to be moving to the truck, and the new one is already in the car. They work quite well. As you can see from the video here going down the road in the daylight, they work fairly well. And at night, they give you a fairly good image also. Now, this particular model has the lens in the front for the drive cam and a lens in the rear that looks back through the cabin and out the back of the car. As far as monitoring traffic behind you, it's of limited use. The cabin is usually much darker than the exterior scenery, so the camera automatically adjusts the lighting for the inside of the car, and the back window, as you can see here, is usually just washed out. You don't see much back there. The new one I bought is the N2 Pro, and the only difference I can find between the N2 and the N2 Pro, the N2 has an infrared illuminator in the front for illuminating the outside in front of the car when it's in parking mode. The N2 Pro does away with that and puts 4 infrared LEDs around the interior cabin light, or the rearward light lens, or the rearward, yeah, easy for me to say, rearward looking lens, which illuminates the cabin at night with a black and white image when the IR is turned on, and it would prove in a court of law that you weren't playing with your cell phone if you had an accident, which I guess is useful. It would be nice to have a better view out the rear, and they do sell units with a rear mounted camera, but then again you have to run another cable through the car to connect it to your dash cam. At any rate, they're not a bad little unit. The price is reasonable. They work well and do quality recording. But what happens is the battery dies in them, probably due to being baked in the sun. What I think I'm going to do, it's wintertime now, so it's not a problem, but I am going to paint the top and this slanted surface here either with a reflective paint or white paint or something, which will alleviate a lot of the heat. It makes a big difference versus a black enclosure. This side, of course, and the bottom don't have to be painted because they're not in direct sunlight, but the sunlight's going to beat down on here or the direct front, and that's evidenced by where the damage actually happens on these. You can see the where the distortion is. It's where the sun beats on it directly, and it probably will save the battery, or at least extend its life. So let's get started. How do you change one of these? Well, on these particular units, on the Vantrues, you remove this little rubber cover, and underneath here is your memory card. That has to come out. Without removing that, you can't slide the circuit board out when the time comes. Another thing you have to do, and what did I do with my needle? Hang on, let me get my needle. Okay, just an ordinary sewing needle. And on the front of the case, there's these two little square looking block things, and there's a little indentation on the side of them. You can just probably make that out if I get it up here close enough. There's a little, like an indentation in the casting or the molding right there. Just put a needle in there and lift up, and that little plug lifts out. Same on the other side. You just push in and lift up, that lifts out. Now you can get to the two screws that are down in here. There's two screws on the top and two screws on this end. So we'll take those out and take a look. Okay, we've removed the 6 screws, and it should be noted that the 2 screws that are much longer are the ones that are down inside these recesses. The other 4 screws, 2 here and 2 here, are much shorter in length. And I'm going to simply pry this thing open carefully, I hope, without breaking anything. Where's my spudgers? Let me get my spudger. Alright, we'll go at it here with the spudger a little bit and just kind of convince it that it's going to open up whether it likes it or not. When this happens, these keypads are likely to fall out. So take note of, it says power here, there's the power button. So if they fall out, don't worry about the orientation. There's a guide that'll show you where they go back. Come on, give up. I know you want to come open and show everybody what's inside of here. There we go. Whoop. Okay, sure enough, these 2 buttons fell out. There's a little LCD display. Now be careful, there's a lot of ribbon cables in here that are easily damaged. Your little LCD display is on a ribbon cable. The next thing you need to do, there's a little black bar right in here. You need to flip that up. And once that's flipped up, it releases the LCD screen. That's out of the way. Next thing we have to do is remove 1, 2, 3 screws here so we can get this top circuit board out. This circuit board is plugged into the board that's below it. So let me get those screws out. Okay, I've taken out the 3 screws, and I should be able to gently tease this board out of its plug. There it comes. There's the plug, there's the socket, and we'll set this guy carefully aside. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4 more screws to remove. These 2 here, these 2 over here. So I'll get those removed, and that should expose the battery. The 4 screws have been removed. We're going to gently lift the board up. There's a lot of interconnections here between the microphone and, I don't know, there's a little, oh, that's the infrared lighting. The connections here to the top where it plugs into the dashboard mount. And this is where you're probably going to drop the keypad out, but that's not a big deal. And sure enough, look at the condition of our battery in here. Let me tease this thing out of here without doing any damage to the wiring, hopefully. Yep, a little bit of double-sided tape holding it in there. There we go. Oh, and the speaker's hidden on the back side of it. That's interesting. Okay, we'll get the speaker peeled off of here, hopefully without damaging it. The speaker shoots out this little grill, this little slot in the front, and not up here where you would think it came out. Unless, of course, they mounted it in the wrong place at the factory. No, there's a little recess in there for the speaker, so that's where the speaker goes. So we'll peel this guy out of here. And there we have our battery. And look how inflated or blown up that thing is in relation to this one. It has really taken a beating in the sunlight. This one is a 280 milliamp hour battery, and my replacement is only a 200 milliamp hour. These are available on eBay for next to nothing. I bought 5 of them so I'd have them on hand just in case I lose another one, and they do have the protection circuitry on the end like the original one does. And although it's a little bit lower capacity, I'm not too worried about it. Well, that's pretty squishy. These only supply enough power for the unit to shut down in an organized manner when you shut off the ignition or unplug the power cable from your accessory plug. If you don't have the battery inside to close the files in an organized manner, you'll lose your video. Let's say you had an accident and it killed the electrical system and it wasn't your fault. If it didn't have the battery to shut down in an organized manner, you'd lose the video that was your proof that it wasn't your fault. This gives it the 10 or 15 seconds runtime it needs to close all the files, and so that when you open up the videos, everything's functional, or all the videos will play. And it doesn't take a lot of battery to do that. It's only a 5 or 6 second time period that this has to carry the unit. So I am going to desolder the 2 wires here from the circuit board. We will install our new battery, and then they've got little pieces of tape over the end of the wire here, so I'm assuming there's a charge on this battery. The only danger is you don't want to short circuit these. Things can go ballistic in a heartbeat if you short circuit a lithium battery. So I'll get this new battery soldered in, and we'll hook everything up and see if it functions. Boy, that thing really is blown up. Couple more tips that'll make your life a little bit easier when doing this. The microphone slips into a little recess right here, so that can be pulled out so that this unit will tip back a little bit further. And the battery really shouldn't, or excuse me, the speaker should really not have come out with the battery. That should have stayed glued in its recess. So I put a couple drops of super glue on that to keep it in there so that it won't pull out next time. And I'll put a fresh piece of double-sided tape on this battery to keep it in place while it's inside. If you can find a little bit larger battery, there's a little bit of extra room in there. You could probably find these. I didn't, in a quick search, find anything better, higher capacity than these 200 milliamp hour units. And I know they're going to work, so I bought them. They were cheap. But if you find something that's 280 or 300 or 350 milliamp hours, as long as the external package size is close, it should fit inside. There's nothing critical about the battery. It just has to physically fit inside the unit. Okay, our new battery is stuck down inside on top of the speaker. I've replaced the 4 screws holding this board in. And as always, as I've warned you many times, when you put these little tiny screws in the plastic, turn them backwards first. Click until it falls into its original thread, and it should go in effortlessly. If you're having to put torque on it, it means you're cutting new threads and you're ruining the boss that it's plugged into. Our keypad's back in with the menu and menu buttons on the same side, power and power on this end, so those are oriented correctly. We will carefully drag the rear looking lens over with its associated circuit board and plug it back in to its little connector. Oops, yeah, I just thought I hit the power button. I didn't. I don't want it to turn on yet because there's no LCD connection. We'll put the 3 screws in here very quickly. I didn't bother showing you them coming out. In general, I'm fairly happy with these Vantrues. They work well for the money. It's a Japanese company. They are assembled in China, of course, but they're a Japanese outfit, and I don't mind supporting Japan. Sadly, they're also outsourcing our assembly stuff like the rest of the world is to China, and we're going to pay for that in the end. We are financing our own downfall. Okay, I'll get off my political platform. Again, I have nothing against Chinese people per se, but that government is world bent on domination, and if you don't believe it, you're not paying attention. Well, almost forgot my LCD screen here. I'm getting on my high horse and forgetting to put my LCD. This is a little bit tricky to get this ribbon cable in here, and you don't want to bend these a lot because you'll end up breaking the traces, and I don't know if these parts are available. I doubt it. I'm going to do this off camera because it's clumsy. I have to get the ribbon cable pushed in and close that little latch. The method I finally worked out was to slip my finger down in behind it, slide the ribbon cable into the connector, and then take my screwdriver and gently poke the bar down to get it to close. You got to be careful. You don't want to short anything on the circuit board. You don't want to break the connector. You don't want to rip the ribbon cable. So we've got that seated in its home. I've got the two connectors in here. I should probably, is that going to stick enough? I guess that'll stay in place long enough for me to flip it over. And because you can't tip this upside down, the buttons will fall out. So if it'll stay in place long enough for me to slip this, whoops, the other camera fell out. And the buttons fell out. This is a bit, as Big Clyde would say, a bit fudgery to get this part of it back together. Suppose, oh, you know what? I'm going to put a piece of tape on the outside to hold the buttons in place. That trick ought to work. By placing a piece of shipping tape, you can use regular old Scotch tape. The buttons will stay in place. Now I can leave the thing laying on its back and do this. And with a little bit of finesse, we should get everything to clip into place, I hope. Oh, damn in hell. There. And of course the LCD fell out. So it's a good thing I've got the buttons taped in place. Let's try coming in from the other side here. There we go. We're over the LCD mount. And bingo. Everything's in place. Now I just have to put the screws in, put a little bit of charge in the battery, and we'll see where we're at. And I've got to run upstairs and check on the turkey. I'm in charge of the turkey, and I'll be heading off to my sister's house, get the families together over there today and have Thanksgiving. So let me get the screws in, check the turkey, and we'll get back to you as soon as the battery's got a little charge on it. Oh heck, I don't even have to charge it. I just happened to hit the button here as I was getting ready to put the screws in, and it woke right up. And the stripes you see running through are from the fluorescent lighting. So everything appears to be working. The little battery's doing its job. We'll put the unit back in the truck. This one's going to go to the truck. The new one's going to stay in the car. There, thank you. Goodbye. And it looks like we're back in business. We'll spray a little reflective paint on these two surfaces. I'll just mask it off and catch this slope surface in the top, and that should reflect the sun enough to prevent my new battery from ending up looking like this. That's it for now. I'm the radio mechanic. Hope somebody found this at least a little bit useful. See you soon again.